In this image, we can see children lined up outside of a building. This building is their one-room schoolhouse down in Kansas during the early 1930s. During this time, the majority of the population in the United States was going through some very hard times, the Great Depression. Due to the stock market crash in 1929, many people had lost everything they had to their names, and even those who hadn't directly invested took hits due to the multitude of stores and businesses that shut down, as well as businesses that had to lay off workers to stay open because they had all of a sudden lost so much capital. Also during this era, farming took a large hit. During World War I, when the demand for product on the government's part was extremely high, many farmers had taken out loans to buy new equipment. But once World War I ended, demand drastically dropped, which caused prices to drop and many farmers to have to abandon their farms or be evicted by the banks when they couldn't repay their mortgages. So many abandoned farms would eventually lead to another catastrophe. With so much land having been plowed for planting, loosening up the topsoil, and nothing having actually been planted, the wind would pick up this dust and create huge dust storms that could roar across the plains for miles on end. This was known as the Dust Bowl. My personal connection with this picture is that my grandmother went to a one-room school exactly like the one in the picture. Schools like this are found in small towns such as the one near where she, my great aunts and uncles, and my great grandparents lived in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina during the Great Depression. Their school had very few students, varying in age from about as young as 6 to around 16. Kids would walk from their houses close to their parents' farms or stores. Unlike in the plains, they were largely unaffected by the Dust Bowl, and so they were able to carry out their normal activities. However, with the Great Depression hanging over their heads, they did have a certain degree of austerity in their day-to-day routine. They didn't eat as much as we do now. Kids would help out making money or doing odd jobs. Cars were around, but being so close together, they barely used them, so they would save on gas money. They burned wood that they cut themselves instead of fuel that they'd have to buy. All in all, in this town, the Great Depression was still felt, but it wasn't nearly as dire as in other parts of the country. My great-grandparents owned a small gas station just outside of town. To help out with hard times, they had a shotgun that the older boys could use to hunt for deer, while the younger kids could use slingshots to hunt for rabbits. They had a few chickens, but not much else in terms of livestock, and just a tiny garden where they grew a few vegetables. Everything else they got from the store in town, either by buying it with money from the gas station or sometimes exchanging fuel.